First, I want to ask Pastor Drew, as co-pastor and community leader with extensive experience in inner city real estate investment, how do you see real estate and economic empowerment as essential tools for community revitalization?
I think very plain and simple. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. I think very plain and simple. There's only so much most of us can do with the resources we presently have today. So life is a journey of how do I take today's seed and hopefully plant it, invest it in a way that's going to not only allow me to keep what I got, but hopefully evolve into having even a little bit more down the road. And one of the reasons I'm happy to be here is I remember being a season as a young father, and I had big dreams, and you best believe I was giving big dreams to my child's mama at that time. I was telling her some big dreams. Come on. But the issue was, I had no idea really how to take where I was at that moment. Confused, unsure. I'm putting on airs like I know what I'm doing, but no idea really how to take this hopeful either desperation or ambition, I don't know which one it was, and translate that into incremental steps to being able to fulfill the things that I was hoping that we would be able to manifest as a family. And so I probably spent the first year with a lot of dreams, and it wasn't until I got in an environment, I don't know if Pastor Murphy's still here, I had to be in an environment kind of like this to be around other men who could talk to me like a man, not pacify me, not ignore me, but let's have some man-to-man talk. And remind me that yes, the faithful things I'm doing today, though it does not look like what I want tomorrow, is going to be worthwhile. And so along that journey was the understanding that, hey, yeah, I better make sure I have some work so I can take care of the rent at the crib where we're at right now. But inside of that was a relentless desire that I got to leave something for them. And I don't want to be paying rent forever. And so how do I get us in a position to own our own crib? And so we'll have some more, I feel like I should be more formal. How do I buy our first home? And I'm thankful. As much as I'd love to act like I was so smart, so brilliant, I had all this hustle. No, you know what? I had enough faithfulness over little things that finally somebody was like, I see this young dude is really trying to get this together. They gave me an opportunity to get on a rent to own a house because my credit was trash. Yeah. And I'm going to banks wondering why they're laughing at me, and the reality was I didn't know any better. I needed to be modeled an example of how to be faithful right now today while still dreaming for the future and not losing hope in the meantime. And so a lot of what I hope we get to cover today is the reality that I think most of the men that are here is a similar desire to be of significant value to your children, be of significant value to your significant other, to be significant value to yourself. But sometimes it's hard to find environments where I can still dream, but also just be real where I'm at right now and be content with it and not be anxious all the time. And so real estate ownership, whether it's your own home, real estate ownership, if it's, you wanted to get into business, I believe firmly in you being in a position to own your own location, if that's your desire for your business. Yeah. And those are anchoring pieces to be able to establish a legacy for you, for your family, and nobody else can take away. And so I'm going to stop right there because I can keep going. But I want to acknowledge that wherever you are right now, just find a way to be faithful today and keep going forward.
I really want to stop, but I want you to keep going because you said something that's vitally important, and my story is the same. My wife and I, we didn't have anything, and I definitely know how to use words and sell the dream and all that good business. But there were plenty of times during the process that I would get discouraged because maybe it wasn't happening fast enough, or maybe it didn't happen exactly like I planned it. And one thing that I say to clients a lot of times, one of your biggest assets in life is going to be the ability to adjust. So during those periods when you was, planting seed, working hard, and it just wasn't like manifesting as quick or exactly like you. What were some of your support systems that helped you navigate in those times when, I'm working, I'm tired, or I'm dreaming and different things like that, but it's just not coming to fruition?
So I can't leave out this part. It was hard. And trying to stay strong, but behind the scenes, I'm trying to figure this out. So in our basement on Chevrolet Avenue that was not finished and it would leak when it rained, I had a little corner with a desk and a chair and a radio. And I spent a lot of time in that basement in God's word, in his presence, clearing my head, because if I didn't clear my head and get my head right, frustration was going to have me say something crazy to my wife or be uptight with our baby girl in ways that they didn't deserve. And so having the space to be able to regroup and rediscover me, who God called me to be, and a lot of that was forged because going back to the earlier conversation when Pastor Murphy was sitting in this seat, he was one of the pastors that was in my life, a godsend, that I was able to see, all right, I ain't got to act like it's perfect, because he ain't act like it's perfect, but he's also giving hope that I'll get there. So having a church that provided support in that way, and again, I got to say this, I think men need, I think men need to be talked to as men. Yeah. And I'm going to be real, I need to be in a church where everything is always rosy and perfect, and then I got to act brand new, but behind the scenes I'm struggling. No, I need to be able to say, I don't get it, or I don't believe it, or I'm frustrated, and have the support to walk it through. And so along with that was a lot of reading books so that I could reframe my mind, retrain my mind. At that time I was listening to cassette tapes so I could retrain and reframe my mind. Because the issue is, the mind that I have right now is the same mind that's going to have me saying something crazy or doing something unnecessary. So I cannot rely on the same mind. And even though, yes, I got aspirations for business and aspirations for real estate, that's great. But if I file this up right now, there's not enough success in business or real estate that can be worth the compromise to the father I want to be to my daughter, and I have a son, nor the environment that I need to create for them by being a good husband to their mom. And so those were definitely the keys. Reading, listening to material, being in an environment where I can keep it real, but be brought back to some principles that are unwavering and aren't based on somebody's opinion, because your opinion might change. I need something that's legit, that I can stand on, and go from there.
Yeah.
Thank you, we appreciate that. What I hear you say that is, along the journey, it's important for men to have not just one, but multiple outlets that are helpful in building you, holding you, you know what I'm saying, and teaching you while you're growing.
Yes.
The ability to adjust is going to be one of your biggest assets mentally, emotionally, and ultimately behaviorally. Pastor Frierson, as the Vice President and General Manager at WNEM TV5, you've shown strong leadership in media and community engagement, What role do you see local media playing in the fatherhood narrative and fostering innovation within underserved communities?
Good afternoon, everyone. So good to be here. Wow, that's a loaded question. And let me tell you why. Because you have to look at it from two different narratives. Okay, first of all, when we're talking about fathers and we're talking about men and we're talking about sons, how does society view two different narratives? Whether it's fathers and sons that come out of a culture, African American community, is it fathers and sons that come out of a more affluent community? Because the stories are told differently. And so we have to take a look at that narrative. Okay, let me give you an example. So in what I do, there are 20 African Americans out of 1,400 in broadcast television, 213 markets. There's only 20 of us. There is one who is president of the network of MSNBC, that's Rashida Jones. She's at the next level. Then there's Byron Allen at the top. So you can see how the narrative can be told as far as stories in communities if there's not someone who is there to help shape that narrative in communities. So how things are viewed and told in one way doesn't mean that you can almost guess what the culture and who it is based on how the story is told. And that's what has to change. And so a lot of times people say, they look at media and they'll say, well, you know, they only tell this side of the story. Yes, a lot of times, because if there's not someone there to understand the narrative, to understand what's going on, or to talk to that reporter, to talk to that producer, to talk to that executive producer, then you don't really get the full story. And that's what we have to work on. You know, right now, and we cannot be afraid to learn how to empower our people. You know, when I took over in this role as president of the station, we had 4%, and this goes across all cultures, but because your community, your station should reflect your community. And that's where it's lost too. We're not reflecting our community. So when I took over, it was only 4% of employment of minorities now. We're up to 14, 15% now. And you cannot be afraid to empower people, to let them know, because I talk to young men all the time, and they want to know, how do I get involved? How do I get there? And so you have to spend that time. So how does local media impact? We must show positive images and stories about people, especially people in the Black and brown community, because there's so many of them, versus showing negative. Visualization is so powerful. You know, we must make sure that the voices are being heard, not talked at. We must support our community in events like this, where we're tying in with media. We must need the partnership with media. And then there's a monetary component as well, that you can't do this on the cheap. The day of trying to get a flyer out to get somebody to come to your event is long over. When you take a look at here today, you take a look at the names, and you take a look at the support and what's being done in 9 years, that's what it takes in order to get the messaging out, that you can partner with local media, so that local media will be able to tell the story that needs to be heard. And it takes that. So we need to have representation in media, of understanding communities, understanding, you know, how to tell the story, you know, truthfully, when I say tell the story, because it doesn't always, it's the way it's written. And I'm fortunate that I have that opportunity to oversee the stories that goes out. You know, Involved Dad has been on our air. We've had him on several times to come and talk about what's going on in the community. We probably at our station have more community leaders and more community, you know, whether it's nonprofit, than any other station in the market to tell the story about what's going on. How do we improve that? So it's really important for this narrative that in order for us to be helpful one to another, that's where it starts. And a lot of times that's where the media gets a bad rap, in a sense, because not everybody is out there to tell the bad story. But a lot are, right? Because it's sensational. If it bleeds, it leads. That's kind of the thing in the newsroom. And so how do we talk about what's actually going on? Like what's happening here today? How do we talk about what's going on to continue that empowerment?
No, we appreciate you. I do some traveling for work, and even though we're removed, every single time I'm anywhere, when I check into the hotel, where are you from? And even though we moved out, I'm Flint, Michigan, and immediately the water. Yeah. And immediately, and I mean, it never fails. So now I just start leading with that. I'm from Flint, the water, but it's good now, and we do have good things and good people going on and everything like that. So it's definitely very, very, very influential, the media impact has. All right, thank you so much for that. Mr. Clark, in your role at Genesee Health Systems, you've led initiatives that connect faith and mental health support. What mental health services are available to reach people more effectively through innovation and partnerships, especially within the faith communities?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that Genesee Health System has been in the agency or been in the county for over 60 years. Over that time, we have learned one important thing, and that is that we have to not only listen, but we have to hear the community and hear what the needs are. I've been in the agency for quite a while, but one thing that we found out is that we didn't have it all, and I think even Judge McDowell talked about it in our tabletop conversation, that you cannot impact the community while sitting in an office. You have to get out into the community, you have to reach, you have to talk to people, and hear to what the needs are. So when we talk about innovative different things that we're doing in the agency, those things came about by coming into the community, talking to people, finding out what those needs are. And so that is part of my job, going out, not only working with the faith base, because pastors have realized that you got to do more than just pray and fast to deal with trauma and mental health and stress and those type of things. You've got to also include therapy. You got to also include medication, but you got to come the right way in doing that. Now, one thing we have to understand too is that every active shooter does not have mental illness. But see, it's portrayed that it's always mental illness. Now, it may be mental trauma, which is different from mental illness. Now, sometimes that mental trauma will show signs of mental illness. They may show behaviors, but a lot of times people are acting out due to frustration or not being able to handle those situations. So that's trauma. While mental illness is dealing with something that's chronic and that sometimes needs medication or needs therapy to help to deal with that. So as we come out with innovative different things to deal with it, we are looking at that, trying to decipher and decide what is mental trauma, what is mental illness, and providing for those services.